Should we just call it quits today after all?
What are you talking about? Since we've come this far, let's get it over with.
Today, John is unusually reluctant to go for his checkup. While trying to convince him, I wonder if it's normal to be nervous about seeing a new doctor for the first time. As we were discussing this, John's name was called, and I helped him as we headed to the examination room.
Rachel, wait outside for me.
But
I am always a burden to you, so just rest while I have my exam.
As he told me this, I was pushed out of the examination room. While I was waiting in the waiting room, after a short while, John came back escorted by a nurse.
Mrs. Smith, please, this way.
Then, for some reason, I was the only one the nurse called into another room.
Is something wrong?
In the other room, I nervously asked the doctor.
Go to the police right now.
What?
If things continue like this.
I was shocked by the words that came out of his mouth. And I immediately sprang into action. My name is Rachel. I'm a 28-year-old working housewife. I have a husband, John, and an 8-year-old daughter, Emily. However, Emily and I are not related by blood. This is my first marriage, but John has been married before. Emily is his daughter from that marriage.
Are you sure this is okay, even though I already have a child, and I myself?
John hesitated as he spoke, but I smiled back at him and said, "Don't worry about it. John is blind." Apparently, he could see before, but he lost his sight protecting his ex-wife during an accident. I met him through work. I draw webcomics, and one day, I received a request to create content on a certain topic. It turned out to be a novel written by John.
I wanted everyone to know that there are things I can do even though I'm blind. Besides, I need to work to support Emily, he said.
The content, filled with his emotions, narrated his life since becoming blind. Moved by his story, I was delighted to turn it into a comic. Then, my editor contacted me, saying, the author of the novel would very much like to meet you, and we arranged to meet at a cafe. With Emily's help, he came. He smiled gently, and I was quickly drawn to his calm demeanor.
I want to be your help. I want to be your eyes, I said.
I've been wanting to be with you too. I love the sound of your voice, it's so comforting, he replied.
He fell for my voice, and we started dating.
Hey, Emily, would it be okay if I became your mom?
Yes.
With Emily's approval, we decided to get married. My parents were worried about John being blind and having a child from a previous relationship.
But if you've decided on this, we'll support you, they said.
Yes, that's true. But remember, you always have a place here.
He reassured me, ultimately supporting my decision. I could embark on married life with peace of mind knowing he would always be there to help me.
Emily, dinner's ready.
Thank you.
She responded, bowing her head respectfully. We've been living together since our dating days, but she hasn't opened up to me yet. Well, that's understandable. It's not easy to suddenly accept a woman who was once a stranger as a mother. I hope she'll gradually come to accept me over time.
It smells good.
Emily was about to say something when John, walking along the wall, emerged. She startled, perhaps surprised by his sudden appearance.
John, are you okay? The table is this way.
I'm concerned about Emily, but for now, I need to support John.
I'm leaving now.
During that time, Emily had already gone to elementary school. When I turned around, she was already gone, and I could only hear the door closing. I sighed as I listened to that sound.
Is something wrong?
John asked.
Sorry, I was just thinking how I haven't been able to close the distance with Emily.
I responded. John looked a bit troubled by my words. Seeing this, I quickly explained that I understand it's not easy to be accepted right away, but I believe it will be resolved over time.
Thank you for worrying. Maybe Emily is still wary of the mother figure.
John suggested. Mary, Emily's biological mother and John's ex-wife, seems to have left them. That's what John suspects might be lingering in Emily's mind.
I'm sorry, but I hope you can be patient with things.
Yes, I intend to.
I assured him. Despite knowing he couldn't see, I smiled at John's words. In return, John smiled and said, "Thank you."
Shall we have breakfast? Let's eat well and then get to our work.
That sounds good.
Both of us work from home, but our offices are separate. This allows us to work at our own pace.
Will you be staying in your room all day today?
Yes, that's the plan. I'll probably only come out for meals.
Understood, just don't overdo it, okay?
With his words, I nodded with a smile and headed to my office.
By the way, I wonder what Yer is working on these days.
We make it a point not to interfere with each other during work hours. Therefore, I don't know much about what John does while he's working. He used to write books using Braille, but I haven't heard anything about that recently.
Well, my earnings alone are enough to support us, so it's no problem.
He must be facing challenges that I can't even imagine. I think it's enough for me to just observe. With that thought, I decided to focus on my own work. A few days later, I was traveling with John to a hospital that takes several hours to get to by car.
Rachel, I know you're busy, I feel bad for this.
Don't worry about it, I want to help.
Honestly, I think it would be better to go to a larger hospital closer to home. But John has his reasons for insisting on this hospital.
There's a childhood friend of mine working here as a doctor who knows my situation well.
It seems they reconnected when he was brought to this hospital after his accident. Since then, she has been very supportive, especially after Mary left us, giving us advice on various matters.
That's why I've decided to see her for my treatment.
Oh really, she's a woman.
Yes, she is.
I had always assumed his childhood friend was a man. Learning she was a woman, I felt a bit uneasy. Even though it's just a medical examination. And their relationship is strictly doctor and patient, the idea of traveling hours just to see a female childhood friend bothers me.
What kind of person is this childhood friend?
She's kind, she gets along well with her husband too.
Knowing she is married relieves me somewhat. A married person wouldn't do anything inappropriate. Then I entered the hospital with John.
It's nice to finally meet you, ma'am. I'm Amy, John's physician.
She introduced herself with a gentle smile. She was very beautiful and definitely seemed kind.
It must be tough for you too. Adapting to new circumstances can be tiring.
I'm here if you ever need someone to talk to, she offered. Feeling embarrassed about my initial jealousy, I was struck by how reliable and nice she seemed. Pleased, I exchanged contact information when Amy suggested it. But maybe that was a mistake.
Oh, a message from Amy.
That night, a message from her appeared on my phone.
Are you really doing okay with John? John has it tough. You need to be strong. What? What's this?
I was confused by the content of the message. It didn't seem like something she would send, considering our interaction earlier as doctor and patient. I instinctively consulted John about it.
Yeah, she's always been kind of like an older sister to me, maybe that's why she sent such a message.
According to John, she has always acted like an older sister, saying, I need to protect John. Especially after his remarriage and given the circumstances with Mary, she was very worried. Maybe that's why she seems a bit cold to me as a childhood friend.
Once she sees that I'm living happily, she'll probably feel reassured.
That's true. Then, I need to make sure we live happily.
I said, smiling. That's the spirit, John joined in with a laugh. Emily seemed to be watching us with something to say.
Emily, is something wrong?
Nothing?
She replied. When I asked her, she glanced at John and shook her head. Then said, I'm going to bed first, and went to her room.
If only Emily would smile a bit.
John murmured. Turning to look at him, he tilted his head and said, I felt a slight discomfort at his reaction.
Can you read Emily's expressions?
Yes, we are family, after all, I can tell by the sound of her voice.
John smiled as he explained. Indeed, after 8 years together, a parent might recognize nuances in their child's voice. But why was he able to respond when I turned around silently, just coincidence?
Is something wrong, Rachel?
No, it's nothing.
I replied, as John asked worriedly, perhaps sensing my distress or wondering about my silence. I shook my head at him.
Rachel?
She said, startling me as she handed over a piece of paper. As I took it, she quickly said, "Please make sure my dad doesn't see this," and then hurried away. I heard the sound of the door closing, indicating she had gone outside. Probably to a friend's house, as she had mentioned earlier.
What's this?
The paper contained a certain number.
Rachel, has Emily already left?
John called out to me while I was pondering the meaning of the number. I quickly hid the paper in my pocket.
Yes, she's already gone, I responded.
It all seems so rushed.
That would be more childlike, wouldn't it? I hope someday she can act that way in front of me too.
I said. John gave a wry smile in response to my words. He seemed unaware of what I had hidden.
John, what's up? Aren't you off today?
Typically, John sleeps in until nearly noon on his days off. So, I hadn't expected him to be up this early, which is still morning.
I was thinking, maybe we could go for a walk together, if it's not too much for you.
He offered with a gentle smile.
That sounds nice. I could use a change of scenery, I agreed.
You're such a hard worker, Rachel, just make sure not to overdo it.
He cautioned. John probably thinks I'm tired because of my busy work schedule. But it's not the work that's wearing me out. It's the messages from Amy that are exhausting me. Since then, I've been receiving messages from her saying, "Don't be a burden to John." At first, I replied with, "It's okay, we're supporting each other." But as the messages kept coming every day, I've recently started ignoring them.
It's been a while since we went for a walk, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
I remembered the number Emily had given me and discarded the paper itself during our walk, hoping I wouldn't have to use that number. A few days later, it was time for John's regular checkup, and I spent several hours taking him to the usual hospital.
What, Amy is off today?
Yes, apparently, she caught the current infectious disease that's going around.
What was different this time was that Amy was off. However, there were other skilled doctors available, so we had one of them see him. I was glad that our long trip wasn't wasted. But John seemed to think differently.
If she's not here, maybe we should just skip today.
What?
He suddenly started saying this, and I involuntarily turned around to look at him.
What are you talking about? It's a regular checkup.
And we've come all this way, we might as well see the doctor since we're here, I insisted. John made a displeased face at this. I calmed him down and sat him down in a chair in the waiting room.
Should we just call it quits today after all?
What are you talking about? We've come this far, let's just go through with it.
John was particularly hesitant about the checkup today. Even as I tried to persuade him, I wondered if it was normal to feel nervous facing a new doctor for the first time. Soon, John's name was called, and I assisted him as we headed to the examination room.
Rachel, please wait outside for me.
But...
I'm always causing you trouble, so just rest while I'm being examined, he said.
With that, I was sent out of the examination room. I waited in the waiting area, and after a while, John returned with a nurse.
Mrs. Smith, please this way.
The nurse said. Then, for some reason, I was the only one the nurse called into another room.
Is something wrong?
I cautiously asked the doctor after being called into a separate room.
Go to the police immediately.
What?
If things stay as they are, you'll end up being used and then discarded.
I was shocked by the words he uttered. I immediately took action. Some time later, I received a call from John on my cell phone.
Rachel, where on earth did you go?
Me, I'm at the police station right now, with Emily and your ex-wife, Mary.
John was silent for a while, stunned by my words. Eventually, in a faint voice, he murmured, "Why?"
Dr. Mike showed me your true self.
I explained. It was Dr. Mike who had revealed the truth to me at that time. Dr. Mike called me in and said, "John can see."
What?
Moreover, he is not the kind person you think he is.
He informed me. His words left me truly bewildered.
It's understandable that you find this hard to believe, but haven't you ever had any suspicions yourself? He asked.
What flashed through my mind were his recent actions. He reacted immediately to my movements, despite supposedly not being able to see. Even in a familiar house, he moves without assistance and manages his personal grooming perfectly. Most concerning is his relationship with Emily. Emily always seems cautious around his eyes, and John would immediately speak up if she and I were talking. It was as if he was monitoring her actions.
There are indeed things that concern me.
I admitted.
He has shown you a false facade. He is deceiving you in collusion with Dr. Amy.
He revealed. Certainly, if John's blindness were a lie, it would be strange for Dr. Amy not to notice.
Dr. Amy and John are having an affair.
Dr. Mike revealed.
What?
It appears that Dr. Amy was not just assisting John because they were acquaintances, but because they were involved romantically. Upon hearing more details, I learned that their relationship began during Mary's time, and she had been aware of it. Mary, who was a nurse, had frequently consulted with Dr. Mike and others she was close to.
Just as I was about to confront them, I heard Mary and John were both involved in an accident.
He continued. These words gave me an uneasy feeling, though I hate to think it.
I believe John played a role in causing that accident.
Dr. Mike stated firmly, seeing my shock.
Afterwards, she returned to her hometown, and we lost contact with her. I understand that Emily was taken in by John, he added.
Yes, she is now living with me.
It's likely that John took in Emily to assess what she knows about the truth and to handle child support.
He speculated. Given these circumstances, it's probable that he was checking on me whenever we talked to ensure I said nothing unnecessary. Emily has been guarded around me, possibly sensing something, and has been trying to avoid John.
Honestly, I can't believe it, but part of me can understand it, I confessed.
I wish we could get in touch with his ex-wife. It seems she's changed her contact information.
He said. His words reminded me of the number Emily had given me.
Actually, Emily gave me a phone number.
I revealed. I decided to call that number to discover the truth.
The person who answered was Mary, as I expected.
I told John all this, who then fell silent. Ignoring his silence, I continued.
She was being monitored by her parents.
Despite that, she desperately wanted to maintain a connection with her daughter, and gave Emily a contact number for a phone you guys didn't know about. Emily herself doesn't own a smartphone, and the landline is monitored by John, so that wasn't an option. The only possible contact was through me. So Emily passed the number to me.
Being a nurse, she has a keen eye for observation.
She found a moment when your parents' surveillance was lax and escaped, I explained.
What are you doing?
I heard a tone of irritation in John's voice that I had never heard before. It seems he has finally shown his true nature.
I immediately contacted Emily's school, and now we're all at the police station.
I explained. Before me, a mother and daughter were having an emotional reunion. The sight of them almost brought tears to my eyes too.
How dare you mess with my affairs, John exclaimed angrily.
What do you mean? I did what any decent person would do, I retorted.
Both Mary and Emily were crying and thanking me, saying, "Thank you so much." What I felt seeing that was a strong anger. The anger was due to him selfishly separating a mother and daughter for his own gain and deceiving everyone around him without remorse. And the novel that had moved me turned out to be built on lies. Learning this truth, I was overcome with shock and white-hot rage.
Mary has proof that she was held captive by your parents.
Plus, if Dr. Mike provides a medical report, the disability benefits you've been receiving under the guise of being blind could be declared fraudulent, I stated firmly.
Why would you do that? Weren't you enjoying our life together? He demanded.
Indeed, I had felt happiness in our life together. Above all, I married John because I loved him.
Right, and you were laughing at me behind my back, weren't you? I confronted him.
He fell silent again. Before going to the police station, I had actually stopped by our house and peeked into his office. I thought I might find some evidence of his affair. What I found was
messages where you and Amy were mocking me, showing you hadn't been working at all.
That is.
the messages described me as oblivious and naive, easy to manipulate. There was one where Amy asked John why he chose me, to which he replied, for the money.
You chose me because I was making money as a webcomic artist.
Thinking I'd be moved by your novel, how simple of me, I've been greatly underestimated. John responded, it can't be helped. What does he mean, it can't be helped? As I pondered this, he continued speaking unasked.
I didn't want to do this, really, but I desperately needed the money, and honestly, the only person I truly love is you, Rachel.
Do you really think I can believe that, after you even planned to get rid of me?
What, you saw that too?
Yes, in addition to the messages with Amy, he had been plotting to eliminate me. John had been living a luxurious life without working by taking alimony from his ex-wife. Unable to forget such a lifestyle, he targeted me as a new source of income. As a webcomic artist, I had a good income and worked from home, which made it easy for John to keep an eye on me.
Was it make it look like an accident once you were done with me?
That was a joke, I wasn't serious, he said.
It didn't seem like a joke to me. That's why we all rushed to the police, I responded.
I went to the police to report the potential threat to my life and their fraud. Emily was there to be protected from John. And Mary had come to file a complaint about her wrongful confinement and the defamation spread by lies.
It's over for you. The police are on their way here now.
I told him. At that, he muttered a panicked, damn it. Right after, I heard Dr. Mike's voice saying, running away is futile, suggesting John's attempt to flee had failed.
It looks like it's over.
I said. I hung up the phone as I heard the police's voice. The police are probably headed to Amy's place where she's recuperating, and to his parents' house as well.
It's all going to be okay now.
I told Emily.
Thank you for letting me see my mom.
She responded with a radiant smile. Seeing her smile made me incredibly happy. Then, it seems that Emily and her mother really went back to Mary's family home. Their home is a plane ride away, so it won't be easy for John and his associates to reach them.
Leave that man to me, I'll make sure he faces responsibility, I assured them.
That seemed to give them some peace of mind. Emily and her mother smiled as they went back to their hometown. Meanwhile, John ended up in police custody over this incident. Although the plan to harm me had not been executed yet, resulting in insufficient evidence. The issues concerning the benefits and his actions with Mary were deemed malicious.
As a result, John has been sentenced to actual prison time.
That's good to hear.
Today, I met with Dr. Mike to report on John's situation. He smiled in relief when I told him the news.
What about Dr. Amy?
She has been charged for writing false medical certificates.
Dr. Mike explained the current situation of Dr. Amy. She has apparently been stripped of her medical license due to this incident. She has also been expelled from the hospital.
It was also discovered that she was involved with multiple patients and was taking hospital supplies home without permission.
The hospital is now billing her for various claims. Furthermore, her husband found out everything and divorced her without question. Well, she brought it upon herself.
Rachel, you got divorced too, right?
Yes, of course.
My divorce from John has also been finalized successfully. I had a lawyer intervene and blocked all contacts with him, allowing me to divorce without having to meet him.
It was truly good to be able to help you.
Dr. Mike said with a smile. He seemed to have regretted not being able to help Mary earlier. He had seen me with John and decided to help this time. Working behind the scenes. There was no direct evidence of Dr. Amy and John conspiring. So I was carefully waiting for an opportunity to expose the truth about his eyes, he explained. To see through John's lies, he needed to examine him personally. But Dr. Amy always insisted on being John's doctor and never let other doctors handle his case. He had been waiting for the right moment, and finally, the perfect opportunity came.
No matter how good his acting is, a doctor's eye cannot be fooled.
Dr. Mike said, almost triumphantly.
Thank you so much.
If you hadn't told me the truth that day, I might not be here right now, I said, expressing my deepest gratitude. Likewise, thank you for trusting me, Dr. Mike replied with a smile. After a while, I received a notification on my smartphone. It was a contact from Dr. Amy.
I forgot to block her, I realized.
Dozens of calls and messages had accumulated. The messages were filled with accusations like, "You've ruined my life."
She tried to destroy someone else's life first. She has no right to complain, I thought to myself.
With that in mind, I didn't reply and finally blocked her number. Currently, I'm back at my parents' home. They probably don't know where my parents live, so I should be safe here for a while.
Rachel, are you ready for dinner? Or are you still busy with work? My mother called out.
Thanks, Mom. I just reached a good stopping point.
I replied with a smile and headed to join her. Meanwhile, the news was buzzing with a particular headline. The famous webcomic author arrested for fraud. In fact, the webcomic I wrote had become popular, and there were plans to turn it into an anime soon. However, it turned out that the content was all fake, and the plans to adapt the webcomic into an anime were scrapped. I, the creator of the webcomic, was criticized to some extent. However, thanks to the support from the editors and the hospital, I am now seen as a victim who was deceived.
When John gets out, he will have no place to go.
I mused, he had deceived so many people around him. Now, I hoped he would fully face the consequences of his actions. Years later, after I had moved out of my parents' home, I returned for a brief visit. That's when the doorbell rang.
Hello, I said tentatively.
Long time no see, Rachel, I've come to pick you up, a voice replied.
Standing there was John, who had stopped pretending to be blind. I was relieved I had checked the monitor before opening the door. Unprompted, he started explaining his situation. He had been arrested over the incident with Mary, had repaid debts with his disability benefits, and his parents had moved after being ostracized by the neighbors. He couldn't go back to his parents' home either.
I have no one but you, Rachel, let's be happy together, shall we?
I refuse.
I said flatly, cutting off his plea. John's face fell, hurt by my rejection. His demeanor almost suggesting he was the victim, which irritated me.
It's your fault this all happened, don't you think you should take responsibility? He challenged.
I don't think so. I bear no responsibility. It's all the result of your own actions, isn't it?
But
even as I rejected him, John tried to cling on. As I was about to call the police in exasperation, someone else spoke up. What are you doing here? John, surprised, turned around.
You, the doctor.
It was Dr. Mike, appearing with a look of anger, alongside my parents.
Did you really come back here to try and make it work with Rachel? Pathetic, Dr. Mike said.
Shut up, if you hadn't meddled in the first place, John retorted.
I only did what was right, both as a doctor and as a human being.
Dr. Mike said calmly yet firmly, facing an enraged John. While watching them, I called the police.
Your selfishness has caused trouble for many people. If anyone should take responsibility, it's you.
Damn it.
John exclaimed and attempted to lash out at Dr. Mike.
Enough of that.
However, he was stopped by my father. Having practiced judo in the past, my father easily restrained John, who had not engaged in much physical activity due to his years of pretending to be blind.
Damn it, let go.
John yelled, but my father held on until the police I had called arrived and took him away.
Rachel, are you all right? Dr. Mike asked with concern after John was gone.
Yes, thank you.
I replied with a smile, reassuring him. He smiled back, relieved.
He rushed over as soon as he saw that guy, I said.
Really, I can trust you with him.
I added, and our parents smiled affectionately at us. Yes, we were actually engaged. After everything with John, we found common ground, and he confessed his feelings, which started our relationship.
Yes, leave her to me.
He said with a nod, and my parents responded in kind, we trust you.
Well, now that the moving is done, let's celebrate in the new house, he suggested.
I was actually visiting my parents' home today to help them move. It was supposed to be a precaution against John and his antics, but it seems we were just in time. Well, I got to see his brave actions today, and next time he comes, he'll face the emptiness alone.
Let's go, I said.
Yes.
He agreed, offering his hand. I took his hand with a smile. Some time has passed, and today is my second wedding.
Rachel, you look beautiful.
Thank you, Emily.
Emily and her family have gone out of their way to attend the ceremony and have given us many blessings. I could not become her mother. However, seeing her smile so naturally is enough for me.
Enjoy today.
Yes, oh, congratulations on your wedding.
Seeing her smile, I responded with a heartfelt smile of my own.